Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show. Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short track door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.
Danica Patrick on the pole. Harvick wins a fan-controlled Sprint Unlimited. Short track cars on a Superspeedway short track. ARCA rolls last week. The trucks, nationwide, cup cars still on tap. Speedweek 2013 is here with events for 8 straight days. Larry Woody has the answers along with our special guests, Deborah Renshaw Parker and Mason Mingus. Coming up next on an extended edition of Pit Pass.
Bandwidth for today's show is brought to you by SoftLayer.com. We love SoftLayer here at Talkopolis. They are the greatest hosting company ever. They make everything easy. Check out their website at SoftLayer.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show. From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
Microcasting for your city, Talkopolis.
Well, welcome in everybody to this extended version of Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams along with Larry Woody. Larry, the biggest week of racing of the year, and we bring in some of the biggest folks from around
The
here.
biggest talent.
Well, talent, thank you.
And what timing. We ought to tell viewers that we have been trying to get Deborah Renshaw on the show for some time, and it just turned out that she could work it into her schedule the week of Daytona.
Now,
With what's her name on the pole,
Yeah,
which we'll
what's her
get
name?
into at some point.
Yeah.
Who?
Why is this important? Well, a lot of folks may not realize that as Deborah Renshaw, she was a regular at the fairgrounds back a few years ago, became the first female in the history of the late model stock car division with a pole. Mm-hmm. More importantly, there was a couple of weeks there where she was the very first female in all of NASCAR to ever lead the local point standings.
Yep.
Deborah, welcome in. Thank you for taking the time to come down from Bowling Green.
I appreciate being here. You know, it's an honor to sit in between you two fine gentlemen, and it's an honor to be talking about some local racing and some history making, I guess, if you will.
And again, get viewers caught up on Deborah. You're living in your hometown of Bowling Green, married to Sean Parker.
Yes.
Got 2 lovely little children. Tell the viewers just a little to update where you are.
Well, I mean,
and what
life
you're
does
doing.
move on
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
So, yes, we're living in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we have 2 children, 4 and 9 years old, and racing is continuing in our family. We'll get to that, but have a little women's boutique. Who would ever thought that I would go from racing to owning my own business that happens to be a women's fashion, which I didn't think that would be a possibility, but you know, and a desire to own your own business, as you were talking earlier to Mason about bringing it back home to a college education. It's very important to have those skills, and now I'm able to apply them. But you know, racing. And once you're a racer, you're always a racer, whatever position you are, and you always miss it.
This past Sunday, I guess, knowing the 3 of us, we were probably all watching qualification from Daytona, and I remember Darrell Waltrip saying when Danica Patrick went out early, he said, "Guys, that's a good lap." Mm-hmm. Did either one of you think that good lap was good enough to hold up?
Deborah, you're the racer.
Let's face it, even from practice. I mean, you know, at a place like Daytona, when you unload, it is what it is. I mean, you know, if there's going to be any changes at all, it's going to be very, very minor changes. I mean, those engineers and those crew guys and Tony Gibson has been working endless hours in the off season, making it what they were going to unload for the big Super Bowl of racing, the Daytona 500.
And that wasn't Danica's first fast lap. She'd been, as you said, Deborah, she'd been fast all week.
Day.
So it wasn't that big of
absolutely. So I mean, it was in the back of my mind that it's good.
She could do it. It was possible she could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm sitting out here on an island by myself because my first instinct was, if Danica with this new team can turn that lap, then the Jeff Gordons, the Jimmy Johnsons, the guys who have volumes of information on Daytona are probably going to be that 200ths of a second, which is all the difference in the world there.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah,
Right.
would be that much faster, and they weren't.
You know, I mean, Larry knows as well as I do that, and a lot of race people know that it was a new car. It's the Gen 6 car.
True.
I meant, so let's bring it back down to a little bit more fair playing ground,
True.
if you will, for younger versus more veteran drivers.
Yep.
But also the Trevor Bayne effect. Anything can happen at Daytona. And Larry and I both know that it's a lot of that hard work and dedication from those crew guys in the off season. And as a driver, you know what marks to change your gears, you know what line to hit on the racetrack, you know to get your momentum up, run the high side, and then bring it down at the green flag. I mean, there's just, you know, only a certain amount of things you can do as a driver to make the success of the team pay off, you know, to show, to reflect what your car is.
See, Deborah, the racer, pointed that out better than we could have analyzed it, because pole qualifying at Daytona is about the car, and these are all new cars. You know, Danica has as much experience as Jeff Gordon, Jimmy
Right.
Johnson, Tony Stewart, any of these other
100%.
guys in this particular car. So once again, Deborah, the racer, has made a point that a lot of us kind of overlook, that you know, they don't have these volumes of information to fall back on because
With
it's
this
a new
car.
car.
Start.
That's true.
But having said that, again, I wasn't surprised. I thought she'd be somewhere in the top 10. Having said that, she won the pole and she made history. Your response to the
Huge.
first woman being on.
I meant it was a huge deal. It's probably one of, and in my opinion, it's probably one of the biggest days in racing history in a long time.
I think, Deborah, interrupting just quickly, my buddy and I were talking about this. I think Danica winning the pole has gotten more attention and publicity nationwide than any event since Dale Earnhardt's death.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. I mean, as I think I heard Mark Martin say it best. Mark Martin said, it's a big deal when Dale Earnhardt Jr. sits on the pole at Daytona. It's a bigger deal when Danica sits on the pole
Made
for the
history
Daytona
and
500.
so much attention focused on her. She's been on all the TV networks, the entertainment shows. Everywhere you look, it's been all 24-hour Danica. I think it's been good for the sport. We'll get into some other aspects of it in a while. But anyway, your response was, like most of us,
It's about time.
Yeah, it's about time.
I mean, it's about time. I mean, I don't mean to be negative on NASCAR by any means, but
Okay.
we've been in the Stone Ages. NASCAR's been in the Stone Ages as far as women in racing for a long time compared to NHRA, sport car racing. You know, even RL a little bit. I mean, so it's about time.
You were the first one at Nashville to win a pole. You were the first one at Nashville to lead the point standings. At a time when racing in Nashville was a pretty doggone big deal. Kind of tell me, I'm trying to think what must be going through Danica's mind a little bit. Granted, different levels, if you will, but the pressure, I think, can be the same. What did you feel a lot of pressure?
Absolutely. I mean, I think any driver feels pressure, and when you're trying new things, when you're the first at anything, and I can only speak as being a female in racing, and whenever you're viewed as not just a racer, you're viewed as a woman in racing. It's unfortunate, that's just part of the deal. But when you do something that's for the first time, yeah, it's going to get a lot of exposure. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of extra pressure on you than the normal, probably rookie, like even, not to bring him up, a Ricky Stenhouse. I mean, she's going to have a heck of a lot more pressure on her than a rookie coming in like a Ricky Stenhouse.
And Deborah, what a lot of people didn't understand, the media likes a story about something that's different and unusual, and a female succeeding in what's formerly an all-male sport is what made your story so big at the Fairground Speedway. It's what's made Danica's story so big in the RL and Indy. And let's be completely honest, the feminine factor enters into that, because there have been a few other women entered in at the fairgrounds and NASCAR Indy that didn't make the splash that Deborah Renshaw made at Nashville and that Danica Patrick has made in her series. And the fact, I think, that the women are attractive and feminine add to the feminine angle, which is sort of why we in the media were covering them to start with. So fairly or unfairly, that does equate to it. Now, having said that, Deborah and Danica aren't just another pretty face on the track. The fact that they're attractive and can do the job in a race car, that's what accounts for this tremendous media coverage. If you had Miss World out there in a race car and she can't get around the track, we're not going to cover her. But if you got an attractive young lady and she can do the job on the track, as Deborah and Danica have been able to do, That combination is what accounts
unfair,
for the,
but it's true.
Fairly or unfair.
You're both saying then that if they look like a female Russian weightlifter,
that they wouldn't get
matter.
that.
Is that what you're telling me?
And we'll get into this in another segment.
It's the world we live in, man. It's sad but true.
And Deborah and I may disagree a little about this. The reason LeBron James was born big and he cashed in on it. Deborah and Danica were born pretty, and I don't have any problem with them cashing in on it. Now we'll debate about how the extent of how much they should or not in another segment.
As a matter of fact, yes, we will.
But the fact is, fairly or unfairly, it is an advantage, and it accounts for some of the media pressure that we put on Deborah when she was racing at the fairgrounds, and some of the pressure that Danica has experienced that she's been in her series.
Looking back, I wouldn't change it for anything, and I'm sure Danica feels the same way. Eventually, she will.
I think you handled it well. As I say, some of the pressure was probably unfair for you to come in as a rookie. We're writing stories about you. The TV people are chasing you around and filming you on pit road and everything.
I agree so much.
But that's the nature of the beast, and I thought you handled it well.
Maybe I'm strange then. I'm going to go ahead and admit this, but by the second year, you were a driver.
Yeah.
That's just
in some people's mind, yeah.
Yeah, you were a
but
driver.
11
you were
years
good at
ago,
what you did.
11 years ago at the Fairgrounds Speedway, it was a difficult deal, and if it were to happen today in Nashville, it wouldn't be as difficult. But back when no one has ever seen a competitive woman, female racer, whatever you want to call me, it was difficult. I mean, there were points, stares, made fun of me. Thank God I had a good rock to fall on in my family and friends and people that to look through all that craziness and realize at the end of the day that it was a blessing in disguise. And hey, I guess I should say thank you.
Well, it went beyond making fun of you, Deborah. There was actually a conspiracy amongst the male drivers to get you disqualified.
It was bad. It was a lot worse.
And I would be on pit road, and I'd hear some of the remarks that were made as you went by. And to NASCAR's credit, when Mike Hilton, NASCAR president, heard about it, he issued a warning to Dennis Graw, the fairgrounds promoter, and said, "This ends today, not this afternoon, not tomorrow. This ends today, or else." Yeah. And at the time, the fairgrounds was a NASCAR-sanctioned track. And to NASCAR's credit and Mike Hilton's credit, I think Mike Deborah even gave you his cell phone number and said, "Any more of this nonsense, you call me."
He did.
So to NASCAR's credit, they put an end to that nonsense.
Even on the local ranks, yeah, they did.
Right.
So Hilton's loving this one. Mike's loving this one.
Mike's probably watching this in Daytona. So, yeah.
Tell you what, we're going to take a quick break here. Before we do, though, I'll tell you about my friends out at Nissan of Rivergate. These guys, I've been working with them for a long time, and matter of fact, got 4 of them, one in the parking lot now.
That's the one I'm backed into, Deborah.
Oh, no, don't tell me that right now.
I thought I heard the alarm going off.
You know what? That's okay. Because if you did, they've got a great collision center. They'll have it fixed up in no time and have it done right. So, Larry,
what a segue.
Just give me your insurance information. We'll go to Rivergate here in just a few minutes. Coming up next, we'll talk more with Deborah about Danica. And, well, you just got to hang on to see this one. We'll be back on Pit Pass.
Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
And welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. Joe Williams, Larry Woody, our special guest this week, Deborah Renshaw. Go ahead and say Deborah Renshaw Parker.
Thank you. Sean would be happy.
I want to keep him happy, but everybody everybody knows you as Deborah Renshaw.
Absolutely.
We talked earlier about the kids. We're talking some more about the kids because you guys have got some racing kids. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that came up, I know you tweeted a quick message back during the Super Bowl, and
darn Twitter.
It's still out there?
You'd think you Twitterers would learn.
I'm trying to figure out exactly how to go to it. Larry, of all the Super Bowls that I have seen, the GoDaddy commercial this year may have been the most wretched, disgusting commercial I have ever seen.
Yes.
And part of that is Danica had to intro it and go, hey, look over here. There's got to be a point. I know they pay her bills. I know they're a sponsor, okay? But and I can say this because I'm a customer there, so leave me alone. But there's got to be, because they're actually pretty good at what they do. But there's got to be a point at which she can go, nah, I'm not doing this. There have been some, we talked in the first segment about that struggle of being the first female in racing in anything.
Look, all right, I'm a Danica fan as far as what she's done on the track, what she's been able to accomplish as far as getting the pole of Daytona 500. That's a huge deal.
Right.
It's taken her a long time to get there. It's taken her a long time. It's still going to take her a long time to get there whenever they get to the intermediates and the short tracks, okay? But that commercial was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life, and I'm not going to pick any bones about it. I was sitting there with my 9-year-old son, very awkward situation, and enough is enough. You know, I mean, a glowing bikini, a naked shower. I mean, what's next for her? I mean, her handlers need to put a hold on this and say it's time to have a little bit more respect for yourself and quit doing it.
And Deborah, this is not just a Super Bowl commercial that set you off. You've always had some problems with Danica kind of selling herself through the hotness factor. And as I said, I'm a little ambivalent about it because, again, like I said in another segment, LeBron James was born big and strong, and you and Danica were born pretty. And if you use your physical assets to help develop your career, I'm not sure I've got a problem. Now, I agree with you that I think Danica, with some of the GoDaddy stuff, might have gone over the line, and you think she has really gone over the line.
She's gone over the line when they first started. I mean, 6 years ago, or however long it's been now.
And your point was, Deborah, I interviewed you, but you think she's not a good role model for little girls, that maybe she sends the wrong message to aspiring little girls out there, not just want to go up and race them, but anywhere career-wise.
Here's the message that she's sending. Pose in a bikini over a race car or over a motorcycle or on a beach, or do this awkward, be involved in an awkward kiss that is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen or heard in my entire life. And it's okay, and that's what you have to do to get there. Because obviously in the past we haven't had as any, as another female that has had that opportunity to get that. It's like Janet Guthrie said. I heard her the other day, and do you know that Janet Guthrie said she was offered, I think it was from Playboy, to pose nude.
Yeah.
You know what she said? She said, hell no. And you know what? At the end of the day, right or wrong, maybe she would have been the biggest thing in the world, but she chose what she thought would not be an influential decision on young people, because at the end of the day, when you are a huge role model like that, you have an obligation in the story.
And again, your contention was, I think it just sends a bad message. Maybe, your contention role model, that it sort of sends the bad implication to little girls out there. I know when you were at the fairgrounds, you made a big deal about you wanted to be a positive role model for aspiring young girls, little girls who wanted to be the next Deborah Renshaw maybe, and building a racing career. But again, not just a racing career, any career.
Right.
You think that's a problem.
I mean, it's a different day and age now too. I mean, you've got music stars that are absolutely crazy and do whatever they want to do. You've got pop stars that are doing the same thing, and now apparently you've got Danica doing what it is that she wants to do. And I mean, let's face it, she's the most recognizable female athlete probably in the world. I mean, and I would say that,
for sure,
that after the 500, for sure. So somebody thinks they're doing something right, and at the end of the day, she's the one that's got to lay her head on the pillow, right or wrong. Who knows what she's really thinking? I mean, is she upset about it? At this moment in time, she's going to say no, and she's going to be positive and confident Danica and go along her way. 10 years from now, she's going to look on it and say, man, maybe I shouldn't have been so crazy.
Well, I remember when Danica was racing with IRL when they came into the Superspeedway, and this was a topic back then. She had posed in some kind of seductive swimsuits and that kind of thing. SI, Sports Illustrated, and some modeling before her racing career took off. And her response was, you kind of do what you've got to do, that, if you have physical assets and you can use them to kind of get some entries. She didn't apologize for it. She said,
the Marilyn Monroe factor.
You do what you got to do.
My brother has always said, why didn't you do that, Deborah? And I mean, I just said, I just couldn't.
Do you think, as we come to Sunday and races in the future, that this recently revealed budding romance between Danica and Ricky Stenhouse Jr.? Is that going to have an effect of any type on the racetrack?
Deborah knows more about this than I do.
Personal
relationship.
Right. It's when you live, breathe, and die something. That's her world. That's what she's in. However the relationship progressed, either pre-divorce, after divorce. I don't know. That's for none of us to decide. And
I'm just saying from a driver's standpoint on the racetrack.
If put in a certain situation, yes, it's going to affect their decision on what they do on the racetrack.
It's going to be kind of hanging over them because they're in such a public eye.
Right.
That's a bubble,
if both of them, one of them raced and the other did, but the fact that they're both racing, they're at the track every weekend together, and so they're both going to be on the microscope. And I remember Darrell Walter once said, Darrell and I were talking about this, about kind of how your personal situation carries over on the track, and Darrell said that race drivers, more than any other athletes, are affected by the mental aspects, that it kind of weighs on their mind. Like Darrell's example was somebody had gone through a divorce at the time. A driver was going through a divorce, and he said, man, of course it affects you. He said if you got a kid homesick when you're racing, and that's in the back of your mind, how's my little girl doing, or you're going through a divorce, he said any of that can throw a driver off his game. And so Danica going through the divorce, and then on the heels of it, taking up with a 5-year younger fellow driver, I think it'll probably have an effect. Now, having said that, Danica seems awfully good at putting all the distractions away, and when she gets in the car, she seems pretty focused, as we saw last Sunday when she's the fastest driver at Daytona. So it'll be interesting to see, though, as how she and Ricky hold up as this media spotlight intensifies, and it will intensify as the season goes on.
So you think then that Danica kind of compartmentalizes things enough that if Ricky's first and she's second and the checkered flag is sitting at Daytona, she'll punt him?
I think so, I agree. I mean, they're racers.
You can always get another girlfriend or boyfriend. You don't get a chance to win at Daytona every day.
But look, NASCAR is going to cash in. It's going to be a gold. It's already in the Enquirer. It's going to be on TMZ. I mean, it's going to be a cash-in story. It's huge for everybody.
The biggest positive story for NASCAR. The second biggest media-wise since Earnhardt's death, which is obviously a terrible downer. But for a positive story, I don't recall anything getting this kind of coverage. And of course, NASCAR loves it, and we've already heard the conspiracy theories that NASCAR let Danica use a bigger restrictor plate or enhanced fuel or whatever to put her on the pole. But as Deborah knows,
can I bring up a point?
It'd be hard to do, wouldn't it?
Okay, and I want to ask your opinion on this. Okay, because I understand it to be that there used to be like a 200-pound driver base limit, right? And then this year they moved it to 180, correct?
Okay,
and now they base, when they put those cars over the scale, they say that you have to be 150 pounds. That's what every driver starts at. It cannot be lower than 150 pounds. They will never start that. Danica weighs 110, 100 pounds.
They're having to add weight,
Well,
I'm not saying it's, but we all know that weight is an advantage or a disadvantage at times.
Especially when you can put it where you want it.
And some of the critics have brought that up. That's part of the
but they're not going to go lower than 150,
Jeff
so
Gordon,
there's a 50-pound.
the same thing happened when Jeff Gordon was doing so well, because Jeff doesn't weigh a whole lot more than Danica probably, and they were complaining too that Jeff had a weight advantage because he didn't weigh as much as Jimmy Spencer or whomever. So, but I wasn't sure what the rule was. Again, Deborah knows more about the rules than I do. That they do have to. There is a minimum that they have to carry, and if you don't weigh that much, then you
get
got
that
to
advantage.
put rocks in your pocket.
So I mean, nobody's real. I haven't seen much about it out there, but it's the truth. I mean, there's a 50-pound advantage, and that's huge at Daytona.
But Jeffy, again, it goes back to Jeff Gordon. He doesn't weigh a whole
lot more. He probably
weighs
140.
Yeah, and Jeff in a bikini now. He's really
okay. With that,
we could go on forever.
With that terrible visual image.
It's a good point, and it's nice to have somebody on the show that knows the NASCAR rules.
Yeah, but how did that lead to Jeff Gordon in a bikini? There's one way we can get that image out of our mind, and that's to go over to the batter's box for a little lunch and maybe a designated driver. But they are serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the batter's box over on Hermitage Avenue. Go by and see our friends over there. We're coming back to our final segment with Deborah Renshaw. We're going to catch up on everything else that we haven't already. Stay with us. There's more.
Oh, yeah.
Sound like an infomercial. There's more coming up on Pit Pass.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. Joe Williams, Larry Woody, and our special guest, Deborah Renshaw. Deborah, just catching up some now, as you've kind of, I don't want to use the word retired. I think you're just relaxing for a while. Your husband, Sean Parker, has a heck of a racing pedigree behind him, too. So you two make a really good pair. And just to prove that, if you need proof of that, all you got to do is to go out to the quarter midget track out in Hermitage every once in a while, or some of these other places, and watch young 9-year-old Jagger, who I believe has won another title.
He did. He's coming off the big 2012 track champion in the junior Honda division, which we're very proud of. I mean, they put on a great show out there. Those kids, I mean, we recently just got done putting on a little pre-show at the Monster Truck event down at downtown and at Nashville, and it was good publicity for us. We've done that now for the past couple of years, and those kids put on a show. I mean, you can start them as young as 5, 6 years old, and that goes all the way up to 16. It's part of USAC series, and it's the Quarter Midget Association, Music City Quarter Midget Association in Hermitage, as you said. Have a big icebreaker event coming up in the next few weeks, and we have a good time. I mean, it's a great time.
Yeah, we got to get some details on that. Larry,
are you content being a racing mom as Deborah Renshaw got racing out of her system, or is somewhere in the back of your mind you'd like to climb through that window one more time?
You know, here's the deal. It's come full circle a little bit as far as now I know what my mom went through, and you know, she wouldn't watch a race for the first 2 or 3 years. Like she would watch the video with me when I got home, but it's a little nerve. I have to keep myself busy. I mean, I usually, sometimes I'll flag the races for the kids and keep myself, you know, occupied, but do I get the urge to get back in a race car? I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's
of course you do.
Yeah, I mean, what does a crew guy who went over the wall part time for an ARCA team want to get back? It's a drug. It's something that you yearn for, and I'll probably be 80 years old and still yearning for it. But if I ever got an opportunity to say, hey, let's go run an ARCA race, let's go run a truck race, I would be back in the car.
But at least you're still around the sport with your children coming up, and your little girl's probably going to end up racing at some point. So Mom you still get your racing fix, you and Sean, through your children.
We do.
So that's great.
We do. And like it or not, I guess we're instilling a lot of competitiveness in them, and I see a lot of that fire between both of us in them, and sometimes we're probably too hard, but you know.
Well, they got good genes.
Yeah, but you say competitiveness like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but usually there's a balance in a family.
Okay.
We don't have a balance in our family.
Everybody's just competitive.
It's a little stressful at times, but it's a good thing.
I didn't know Sean that well when he's crew chief, obviously very competitive, but I did cover Deborah, and there wasn't anybody more competitive than Deborah Renshaw in those days. And some of the best racing, Joe, and you were calling the races that we saw back then was Deborah and Mark Day and some of those really good, really talented drivers, just lap after lap after lap. And I'd cover a race, a cup race, and come back and be talking to people, and they'd talk about the cup race. I said, man, the best racing I've seen was out at the fairgrounds, Deborah and some of those guys going at it. So point being, there wasn't anybody more competitive on a racetrack that I've ever seen than Deborah was.
You had Mark Day, you had Mike Reynolds. Remember Mike Reynolds?
Yeah,
I mean, heck of a race car driver. You know, Joe Buford. I mean, you know, Andy Johnson. I mean, you know, and a lot of those guys are still running out there.
And it ate them alive to get beat by
It did. It absolutely
did. They raced you harder than they raced anybody else, which made the racing more exciting.
Very huge point, because you know what? That's what, not to bring it back to Danica just real quick, but when I was racing in the truck series, you're right. It was on the radios, even in the local series. You're gonna let that girl pass you.
Yeah.
She's still gonna get that. Those guys can say that they're you know, not going to, or maybe not, because it is going to be on national television, and maybe the spotters won't be as bad. But it happened in the truck series all the time.
So some of it was a matter of pride. They didn't want to get beat by a girl. Some of it was a resentment. You know, there was some lingering resentment over some of the things went on. But the bottom line is, they did race you harder probably than they raced any of the boy drivers.
And made me better.
Yeah, and you're talking about coming full circle.
Yeah.
You know, you race some of these guys. Jagger's racing the
next generation
of these guys, right?
Yeah, you've got like I said,
Jim Sellon.
Yeah, there you go. At the track in Hermitage, we've got Scott Fetcho, and you know, a lot of you guys know Scott. Yep. He's been around the track a long time, and he's got a great past history at the fairgrounds, even going across the wall in a lot of ARCA events or truck events with Bobby Hamilton back in the day. And then you've got Andy Johnson. I mean, of course, everybody knows who Andy is. Such a great talent. So you've got his kid, you've got Scott Fetcho's kid, and you've got my kid out there competing against each other. And it's funny, you know, last weekend we went out to the track and we were testing, and Scott Fetcho's son, Dylan, he's a little bit older than Jagger, and Jagger's moving up divisions. Well, they spent about 30, 45 minutes out there, Jagger following Dylan, you know, as he's progressing up, and Dylan being more of a mentor row. And then, you know, you've got the dads out and the moms out there being competitive as you know what. Oh, Bobby Jr.'s kids are out there too. I forgot. Yeah, his little girl. She's out there. He's joined us this past year, and I mean, we have a good time.
The difference I saw there, though, when I went out to visit, and you tell me if I'm wrong, difference I saw there was, Larry, it was much more the way local racing used to be. Yeah, I'm going to fight you tooth and nail, but you need a brake pad. So you can make this race. There's 3 in the trailer. Go get one.
100%.
You need help putting it on. Let's get it done so you can get out there with the rest of us. Big difference. I mean the what I call the correct feel. Did I misread that?
At the racetrack.
Did I misread that?
So no trackside friction between the moms and dads from some of the old fairgrounds days. Like you and Andy get along okay?
No, not like I mean, Andy and I are good friends. More now probably than back in the day for sure. And some of you remember I did rent his late model, and Randy Weaver and we all went racing a few UARA races and had a good time. And even at the fairgrounds, I did drive his car. So it's funny how things come full circle with that as well. And but it's a good family feel out there at the racetrack. And yes, we do have our drama at times. You know, we do have tech tear down, and we had a issue that we had to deal with there. But at the end of the day, a rule is a rule is a rule.
Well, I know that Andy and Mark and Joe and some of those guys have mellowed over the years. I'm not sure Deborah's mellowed.
I'm beginning to wonder. I think you're right.
I still don't think you'd want to mess with her on the track.
Oh, gosh.
Real quick.
My filter is gone, and it becomes more of that. It becomes more apparent every day.
You had one.
You never had a restrictor plate.
I was going to say,
a little bit.
A lot of things going on in Daytona. Now, we've seen the fan-controlled Sprint Unlimited, which was a snoozer. We've seen qualifying. The ARCA race, it was pretty good. The last couple of nights, NASCAR has done their UNOH Battle at the Beach. And all 3 of these races have ended. Well, 3 races were won by drivers who led a total of 4 laps.
Yeah.
2 last lap passes and 1 next to last. A lot of moving and shoving. Steve Park won the modified race last night.
So happy for him.
Yep.
Monday night, a young kid by the name of Kyle Larson, who may now be the most hated driver in all of the country.
No, you do what you have to do.
Oh, but not in the middle of the straightaway.
He did.
He hit him once in the corner, and then he turned him. The difference, 20 grand to win, 2,500 for second. So
it is a difference between in the corner versus in the straightaway. I will have to agree with that. But, you know, there's so many questions. Did they have a history together? Did something happen between the 2 of them a year ago? You know, I mean, you never know in that situation.
He's from California. The guy's from Virginia.
That's true. That's true.
Kind of like Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon, you know.
Well, yeah.
That thing had been building for weeks, if not months, when
it's
they rolled over. So you're right. You never know. That particular incident might have been weeks in the making.
But it is a trophy at Daytona.
Exactly.
And that was the first time in history that had ever happened for the late model.
They built a little 4/10 mile paper clip on the back straightaway.
Woo!
That was maybe the tightest turns I've ever seen in a racetrack, other than maybe a road course.
It's like the old quarter mile at the fairgrounds.
Oh, it was worse.
Oh, yeah.
Much worse.
I don't know if I envied them at all sometimes in the corners.
Yeah. Now, coming up Thursday, the duels, the twins, to set the lineup, except for Danica and Jeff Gordon.
She can still run it. Who knows?
Well, she's got to start it. She's got to start.
Joe, you made a good point. I asked you, and again,
she
it
needs
shows
the experience.
How little I know about the racing. I'd always wondered why the 2 front row drivers, in this case Danica and Jeff Gordon, would bother running the qualifiers because they can't improve their positions. They're already set. Why get out and risk wiping out your car in the races? And Joe explained,
if you don't, you go to the rear.
It's a NASCAR rule. They have to start it.
You will. you will still have that history of getting the pole position, okay? And this is the first year for that Gen 6 car.
Yeah.
Why not get that experience for the bigger picture of possibly winning the Daytona 500 and becoming the largest sports figure in history?
Those qualifying races have a history of being pretty wild because there are a lot of desperate drivers that have to do well to get in there. And what if Danica and Jeff get caught in somebody else's wipeout, and there goes their fast cars for the 500. I'm just not sure it's worth it. I might be a start in park if I were Danica or Jeff.
Wouldn't be the first time it happened either.
But you answered my question. The reason they do it is because NASCAR requires them to at least start it.
Well, and then here's another thing. I mean, everybody has a different agenda. You've got teams that have huge amounts of budgets and they've got a backup car, and you've got teams that don't have a backup car, and you've got teams that do have the budget and the backup car, but it's not as good of a car, so they're going to try to protect that car. And then there's drivers that probably have a better car in the trailer, and they're going to want to destroy that car so they can get the better car. You've got different agendas.
She's always thinking.
I mean,
seriously.
It's an angle. Everything's an angle.
Everything.
Well, it's the truth.
Friday night, the trucks. Good luck, Clay Greenfield out of Springfield. He'll be going down to run that race.
Good little driver.
Yeah, glad to see Ricky Crawford back in a truck.
Me too. I love that guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a character.
He is.
Yeah, 39 trucks trying to get 30 spots, I guess, in the Nationwide Series on Saturday.
Speaking of the trucks,
spots.
It's 36. Yeah, there's only 3 that'll go home.
Quickly,
You're right.
Joe. Yeah. While we have Deborah here, are you still the only female driver to lead a
truck race?
I know you were at one point, and I don't know if since then.
I don't know.
I know you were the first. You were the first one to lead it. Since then,
somebody has.
But you were the first woman driver to lead a lap in a truck race. Go ahead, Joe.
Saturday, you've got the Nationwide race. Jeff Green has filed an entry. 9 out of the 45 attempting to get 40 spots. That was a change from 43 to 40.
There you go.
9 out of the 45 have cup connections. Will not be running for points. 17 out of the 45 are connected to cup teams. So that means some of the Nationwide guys, they're going to suffer again. They're not going to get that opening race to make the opening race to get their points started.
And speaking of Jeff Green, it's so sad to see a great driver like Jeff Green was in the years past, as good a driver as came through here, to have to be relegated to some of those starting park stuff and the clunker cars and that kind of stuff as he's been the last couple of years. He's just too good a driver to. You just feel sad to. It's like seeing Secretariat hooked up to a plow. To see Jeff go out like that.
You've seen the transformation. I mean, let's face it. Racing is not what it used to be, but it's becoming a form of entertainment.
Yeah. Speaking of entertaining, I bet it would be entertaining to hear this acceptance speech. Sterling Marlin, inducted one night this week into the Daytona Stock Car Hall of Fame, 2-time Daytona 500 winner.
Amazing.
Somebody ought to write a book about it.
Somebody should. Maybe 2 books. No, Sterling's great.
Amazon.com, Google Sterling Marlin and Larry Woody.
Hadn't changed a bit. Raced 17 years, 278 races before he finally won a race, and it was the Daytona 500. And then goes back and wins it again next year. What a great story.
Amazing.
What a great person.
All right, Deborah, thank you.
Hasn't changed a bit.
Not a lick. Same old tobacco chopping farm boy from Carter's Creek that he was before he won 2 Daytona 500s. And success doesn't seem to have changed Deborah Renshaw either.
No, you're right.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
been fun.
it. I love talking racing, and once it's in your blood, it'll never go out.
Kind of like malaria. I think that's what Sterling once said.
Oh my God!
We need to have you back, Deborah. It's fun to chat with you and get caught up.
It's definitely fun.
Only
keeping it real. Keeping it real.
Like malaria. As we end this segment, we want to say hi to our folks at USA Motor and Machine. They're over on Cleveland Avenue. Whether it's your daily driver needs a little engine work or you're looking for a race car engine, they do a lot of stuff and can probably handle anything you've got up your sleeve. That's USA Motor and Machine on Cleveland Avenue. Thank you again to Deborah Renshaw. When we come back, we'll visit with Nashville local, now ARCA driver, Mason Mingus. That and more coming up on this extended edition of Pit Pass.
Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to this extended edition of Pit Pass. Joe Williams, Larry Woody with our Special guest now, the driver of the ARCA machine this past Sunday. You've had some traveling to do, Mason Mingus. You've had a big week of travel.
I have. We've been to Daytona and back so far, and planning on going to Mobile here this weekend.
Oh, man. You ran the ARCA race Saturday.
Yes, sir.
All right. It used to be on Sunday after qualifying. Now they've moved it to Saturday before the Unlimited, I guess they call it now. Tell us about that. That had to be fun.
It was a lot of fun. You know, all I've been on before is short tracks, so Daytona was completely different. I had a lot to learn throughout the race, but my guys were really good about talking to me, about learning how to draft and moving through the field. Unfortunately, we had a really good car, but unfortunately we suffered some front-end damage on a restart and had to work our way back up after pitting.
I'm saying that you started 9th,
yes, sir.
Qualified 9th. We'll go ahead and tell everybody, you wound up 7th, but he should have been 4th. In my mind, that's kind of where I had you pegged at the moment. And with a little bit of luck, you realize just one little piece of luck, and you were in a position to walk away from there with a trophy.
Absolutely. I think we had an awesome race car, and just if things would have gone just a little bit better and gone our way, we'd have been walking out with a lot better spot.
Mason, the new ARCA cars. Tell me about the drafting. Since this is your first time working on the draft, could you actually feel the difference? Because it looked like you guys were having a hard time passing each other.
We were. The ARCA cars, the way they're built, they're not quite like the Cup cars, and you can't suck up right to somebody's bumper in the draft, which makes it really tough to get a bump on somebody and make a run. There's like a bubble of air right at about 2 feet, and you really can't get to people's bumpers, which makes it hard to go on the outside lane. You have to struggle. You end up riding for about 4 or 5 laps on the outside lane to get around somebody.
Mason, for the benefit of viewers who might not be familiar with Mason Mingus, give us a little background. You're senior at Franklin Road Academy.
Yes, sir. I wrestle and run track, play football there. I've been racing since I was 7. Started out in quarter midgets and have been moving up through different racing series throughout the years.
And live in the Franklin-Brentwood area here.
Yes, sir. Right now I live in Franklin. I'll be moving to Mooresville as soon as I graduate in May to be up with the team and work on race cars.
That's what I was segueing to. This is going to be a pretty big move for when you graduate in May from high school. You're packing up and moving to Mooresville, North Carolina to join your racing team, which I think Mason is moving from Minnesota down there to the heart of NASCAR country. That's a pretty big move for a high school graduate, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. Instead of going to college, I'm going to go to college part-time while I'm there. Can't go full-time because the race schedule takes up too much time, but I'm going to get up there. Those guys moved this winter to have everything based in North Carolina and be more available to the other race teams and things. And so hopefully I'm going to get up there and get in the shop and learn a lot and about working on race cars and stuff.
What's the charm, Mason, or the lure of living in North Carolina? It's just the fact that everything is close and convenient and sort of, as we say, sort of the heart of the racing industry, stock car racing industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything to do with stock car racing is there. Every big-time NASCAR team, most of the ARCA teams, and all the truck guys, cup guys live there.
So otherwise, it's back and forth all the time. So it's better to be there.
Absolutely, yeah. To be there with those guys and travel from there to the races makes it a lot easier than having to just meet up with them on race day because of school.
Larry, we'll jump on something. What a lot of folks don't know is that a little bit of a schedule change this year. The race is about a week later than normal, which means it should have been the ARCA race should have been a week ago. And what a lot of folks don't know about Mason Mingus, he kind of blew right through it a second ago that he runs track and wrestles. What a lot of folks don't know is he's also the past few years been a competitor at the state championships in wrestling.
I've asked him a number of times what he does with all his free time.
Exactly. Were you a little upset with the timing with the state championships the same week as the race? I thought about you the other day.
Yeah, I was. I think I had a shot to maybe make a run at it in the state championships, but Daytona, obviously, I was definitely willing to sacrifice missing the state tournament for Daytona.
You're on one track or another, some kind of track all the time.
Yes, sir. Stay busy for sure. But we were fortunate enough to win the state dual championship the 2 weeks before, so that was what really counted and why I really needed to be there. So luckily, those two didn't interfere.
Mason, once you get settled in Mooresville, North Carolina, kind of what's the future plans of the team? Do they have a schedule laid out, some kind of progression for you, or are you just kind of playing it by ear once you get down there and see what develops?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely playing it by ear. You know, we need some more sponsorship to be able to move on in the path that we'd like to take. Renshaw has started running a couple truck races. They ran 2 last year, and they are going to plan on running a few this year. And I'd like to get in a truck with them a couple times, and then possibly progress into me running for them full time next season. But you know, we need some more sponsorship to be able to do that.
How much of this is as sponsor dollar driven as I think it is? And what I mean by that is, it's obvious without it you're not going anywhere. But some of the teams that, I guess, if Larry Woody came in tomorrow with
my big checkbook,
yeah, with $1.5 million, you know, would that put you in peril?
I mean,
or not you, but let's say somebody in kind of the same situation. I guess what I'm saying is, we've gone from being talent based to being dollar based. Yeah. Is that a better way to put it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. Nowadays, it's huge. It's about your remarkability and how well you do, really off the racetrack with press and things like that, to be able to get sponsorships. But if you can come to the table with big money, anybody can race in NASCAR. And now keeping the big money means you probably have to be able to drive.
Mason, if you sought advice from any other NASCAR drivers, like your neighbor Darrell Waltrip, and say this is my career goal, what advice do you give me in progressing to that point? You sought any advice from people who have kind of maybe gone through, you know, walked previously down the path you're trying to tread now?
Well, I mean, I've got to talk with a couple people, more so just on advice for different racetracks we were going to and how to be successful at those tracks. And I mean, really, that's, you know, that's the key to it, is being successful along the way and being, you know, trying to win races along the way so you can get noticed and get those sponsorship dollars. Your
neighbor Darrell would be an awfully good person to get some advice from if you can contact him. I know he's kind of busy right now, but
yeah, he's been tied up this week.
Awfully good. And interestingly enough, of course, he relocated from Owensboro to Nashville, but that was a different time and a different era. Yeah. I think it's probably, you know, a good career choice to move to Mooresville. A lot of young drivers are doing that right now.
Now, we'll go ahead and tell the folks date this. This is Wednesday, so you'll leave Thursday or Friday to go to Mobile. Mobile is a half-mile racetrack, high-banked. Versus the 2.5-mile, really high-banked Daytona. You looking forward to getting back to the short track?
Absolutely. The race in Mobile is actually in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And you know, it's a huge change from going from Daytona to Mobile. You know, there's pretty much nothing similar to them. But you know, short track racing is what I've grown up doing, so I really look forward to these races. I feel like I can bring a lot to the table in those tracks, and we can make up some points. You know, we're going into Mobile after running 7th at Daytona, technically 7th in points, but out of the guys running for the full season, we're probably 2nd, maybe 3rd in points. So hopefully we can gain a few of those and maybe come out there at least top 2 in points.
That's kind of where I was headed. You know, they're kind of like NASCAR. Everybody goes to Daytona, and then you may not see them again until they go to Talladega.
Absolutely.
Your parents have been pretty supportive. I know we've talked to your dad some on Terrell Davis' radio show. They've really been behind you in this. I guess you couldn't have gotten to this point without their support, could you?
Oh, not at all. My dad and my mom have been there with me since day one. My dad got me my start in quarter midgets and has been helping me ever since.
What's the response to the little fledgling flying the nest after you get out of school and moving off to another state? They realize that's part of what you want to do, and they're going to do it.
Yeah, they're okay with it. You know, my dad wants me to go because he wants me to be in the shop with him. You know, we both definitely think that's going to help me at the racetracks, being able to communicate with them and knowing a lot more about the race cars.
How are you? You excited about moving? I mean, you're what, 18, soon to be 18. Girlfriend here?
I do. She's going to go to school at Swanee University South, but you know, I'm excited.
It's not that far.
That's what Mason keeps trying to
tell her. That's right. It's not that far.
It's not that far.
But no, I'm definitely excited. I think it's going to be really helpful to me.
It's a good experience. I remember when I left home to go to school, it was a life-changing experience. I think it's going to be fun. I kind of envy you off on your adventure, Mason. It's going to be fun. And again, the old man's advice was try to get into school and get you some good business management classes and get an education while you're racing too. And that way, if you make it career-wise, which I hope you do, and I think you got a shot to do, but at least you've got that to fall back on. And even if you make it as a racer nowadays, as our next guest, Deborah Renshaw, will tell you, it's such a business proposition now that you need some business experience and expertise to kind of fall back on to make sure you know how to handle these hundreds of millions of dollars you're going to be making in the future.
Yeah.
Right, Joe?
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I just hope he remembers us. Of course, the other half, Larry, is when we went off, it wasn't at 200 miles an hour like you're going to be doing.
No,
Good luck, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You excited? Having fun?
I am. I'm really excited.
It'll be fun to follow your progress, Mason. As we said often, I think you're probably the most talented young driver to come through Nashville, this area, in a long, long time. You could be our next Sterling or Darrell Waltrip, so it'll be fun to follow your progress, and we all wish you well.
Yeah, but he's not putting any pressure on you.
No, of course, not a bit. Just the next Darrell Waltrip.
You've run at the Rim before, haven't you?
I ran there once. That was actually my first late model race ever, was at Highland Rim.
It's a tough place to start, but it's a great place to have fun. Highland Rim, their season opener coming in just a few weeks. We'll have more details on that as time goes by. I want to thank you for joining us today. For Mason Mingus, Deborah Renshaw, Larry Woody, I'm Joe Williams. We'll see you next time on Pit Pass.